welcome to the Inspired Are You Future Ready conference. This is our inaugural conference, and it's part of our vision of creating an online and a global community of collaborators, of thinkers, of innovators who will work together towards creating a better future. I want to start with a quote. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. So often we get drowned in the huge problems of the world, and we think that as an individual we won't be able to make much of a difference. And this is where collaboration and meaningful partnerships really come in, because yes, as one individual, you still can make a huge difference to the world around you, especially when you work within your own sphere of influence. But it's so much more powerful and so much more impactful if you can also form those collaborations, those networks of multiple skills with people who have multiple insights into solving the problems that the world today already has, and also the problems of the future. When we came upon the idea of this conference, we wanted to make it much more than just a series of webinars. How could we bring together the experience that we so love about attending conferences, namely the networking, the talk around the coffee table and the nice snacks, the exchange of business cards, and then of course to add to that the learning that comes where you are exposed to the thoughts and the ideas of people that you would not normally be able to get into contact with on an everyday basis. So hence the idea of this conference was born, to democratize access, to create something that is more sustainable, that would live long beyond the 5 days during which we are broadcasting the conference. And that was the seed of our idea. We then started thinking around what would be the most relevant topic, and we thought about the future, because so many people are struggling with the ideas around whether they have the right skills, the right talents. Are they in the right job? Are they in the right role within their organization? And then broader issues around how do I manage with stress? How do I manage to use my ideas and turn that into a more sustainable business? How can I be more innovative? Because it is what the world is asking. How can I construct teams that work really well? And how do I work with others in partnership so that those partnerships are really meaningful and impactful, and that we can actually really contribute towards a more sustainable and a peaceful world? So we looked at the topic of the future, and we said that you cannot look at the future through just one lens. You cannot look at the future just through education, even though we recognize the importance of education in changing mindsets and in equipping young people with the right skills. So we had to use a lens of education. We had to ask ourselves if the current school models are relevant, are they inclusive enough, do we really look at embedding emotional and social learning in the schools? What are the things that are essential for schools of the future? We then also said, well, schools lead to equip people to go to university, and then to, of course, get a job, get in the world of work, where they could then make a bigger contribution. So hence we put on a second lens, and that is the world of work. So are organizations going to remain the way they are currently? We know that the COVID crisis has really brought about a lot of dialogue about the structure of organizations. Do we need big offices? Are the traditional hierarchical organizational charge still relevant? How do we work together? What's the role of women in this digital age? What's the impact of technology on work? And that was our second lens. But that was still not enough, because work leads to the generation of money. So how do we talk about money? Where do we invest? In this volatile, uncertain world, do we invest in stocks? Do we buy property? Do we buy gold? Do we buy Bitcoin? And hence we thought we need a lens of money. And not just looking at money, but also philanthropy and entrepreneurship. What about digital currency and the digital economy? These are all questions that people ask. And even with the thoughts of the fact that we're going to all live so much longer and remain healthier for so much time, when do we retire and what does that mean? So we found the perfect speakers to share those ideas with you. And then we also then said, well, okay, so we've got education, we have work, we have money, but what about skills? Are we equipped with the right skills to be effective in work, to start those startups, to be entrepreneurial? And hence we then said, no, that should be our fourth lens. We need to look at the skills of the future, and whether what skills do we need to focus on? Are these technological skills? Are these business skills? Are these what people call soft skills, which we really don't want to call soft skills, because we believe these are essential to success, and that has been proven, like, for example, emotional intelligence, the ability to collaborate, network, and harness your own network for success. Then we said, well, that's all good and fine, but what if we don't have a world to live in anymore? And hence we looked at the lens of sustainability. Not only sustainability in terms of the environment, but sustainability in terms of everything. How do we build sustainable businesses? How do we think about what do we think about the circular economy? What do we think about the relationship between politics and the environment? How do we support the United Nations sustainability goals? And are we truly working in those really meaningful partnerships that will help us to be stronger together and have that synergy that comes from effective partnerships? And what do we need to know about creating partnerships, because it doesn't necessarily happen automatically? What's the language that we should be using when we talk about the future? Because there are so many different interpretations of, for example, the word sustainability. So that gave us the 5 lenses through which we have structured this conference. From the different interviews with our amazing speakers that range from 17-year-olds to young innovators and people that are so excited about creating their own access to the future, to well-established CEOs who've learned some from bring their years of experience to the conference. From all these interviews that we conducted, 4 central themes emerged. And most of our speakers, regardless of whether we're talking about schools or money or education or sustainability, did mention these 4 things. And the first one is the need for more empathy and compassion. And this is such a central theme in the world today. We keep on talking about social distancing. We see the plight of other people, but are we becoming more and more self-absorbed or self-concerned as a result of what is happening with COVID-19, the emphasis on isolating at home, social distancing, and what is the result? How do we build a better world if we don't have a more compassionate and a more empathetic world? especially when we know empathy is also the starting point for design thinking. That is the thing that spurs on a lot of innovation today. The second theme that emerged is the importance of leadership. Leadership not only in the traditional political leadership or CEO leadership of a company, but also leadership at a personal level, leadership at a team level, and the importance of having visionary leadership, leaders that are emotionally intelligent, leaders that have a very strong value system that is then transferred into the company. Why do we need good leaders? What are the characteristics of good leaders? And we felt that that was a very, very important theme that emerged, together with another theme that we know that is really on everybody's lips at the moment, and that is inclusion and diversity. You cannot solve the problems of the future if you have only one type of person in your team, if you don't take into the consideration different gender, different race, different age groups, different approaches to the future. And hence, we also have a very inclusive and a very diverse set of speakers. We have males, females, young and old, different races, different geographies, all bring their very rich and rich insight that creates depth to these conversations. So a lot of advice, a lot of reference is made in all of our speakers' sessions to the importance of building inclusive and diverse teams. And then, of course, the last one that we cannot ignore when we speak about the future is the importance of technology. We cannot ignore it. We know that it has its disadvantages and advantages. We're living in a world where data, we're immersed in data. Data drives what we do, and increasingly technology, artificial intelligence, the whole way in which we access information, the way that we communicate and connect is going to just grow and intensify and play a bigger and bigger role in our lives. So what do we do with that technology? How do we utilize that technology? What is the role of the digital economy? Are we moving away from, for example, paper-based notes to Bitcoin and other kinds of cryptocurrencies? Are we how do we manage technology so that we don't lose our own humanity? And then those four themes are themes that run across, and we have created in our ITSpace community channel these channels for you to reflect on these themes as we move through the conference. At the end of each day, we have a summary that is done, not just a summary, but a reflection on the core messages, the core takeaways, the story of the day. We have storytellers, we have visual graphics, and we hope that that will help to tie the whole conference together. But our message to you is that you will only get out of this conference what you put in. So the more active you are in the apps, the more you share and collaborate and comment and think and reflect on the learning, and also action the learning beyond this conference, the more meaning will be created. And it is our ambition to also look at a few months down the line what you have done as a result. What was the change that happened as a result of this conference? Have you, for example, taken on Bruno Chandron's idea of role crafting and looked at restructuring your organization? Have you taken on Natalie Turner's 6I model for innovation? Have you joined up Connect Aid and looked at how you can support communities internationally through that? Have you thought about inclusion and more inclusive teams? Have you, for example, looked at your network to see how you can better utilize your network to grow your own impact? Or perhaps you started a new collaboration with another person, another organization. Perhaps you have reached out to some of our speakers, have shared the learning of the conference in your own organization, because we want to encourage you to take this learning and to think about ways in which you can transfer some of the key messages and learnings within your own organization. It can be a series of short online messages. You can share your learning. It can be informal, it can be more formalized, and you can also think about actioning this through some real action plans. So we want to encourage you throughout this conference to have with you a pen and a paper and to take notes, to brainstorm, to mind map, to write down the names of people that you would like to contact with. And of course, you've got the advantage, if you missed something, you can always watch the session again. This is the advantage that we bring through our conference. We trust that you're going to find this an enlightening experience that is well worth the investment of your time, the investment of spending time and listening and being an active participant. And I want you to remember that Jane Goodall said that you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. And what you do does make a difference. And it's your decision to decide what kind of difference you're going to make. Gandhi said to us, the future depends on what we do in the present. And nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody can give you a real plan for your future. But what you can do is to actually take this learning, take on what you've, this experience, and to really not let the memories of your past limit the potential of your future. So if you are currently finding yourself stuck because of COVID, this is an opportunity for you to actually sit back and say, well, I can actually learn from what's happened to me. I can reinvent my life, because there are no limits to what you can achieve through life except through the limits that you set to your own mind. Thank you very much for joining us. We are looking forward to meeting you in the EdSpace channels so that we can share our reflections, our ideas, and we would love to see a lot of new collaborations, networking, partnerships, and just connecting with individuals happen as a result of the Inspired Are You Future Ready conference.